Coming to you by way of the not-for-profit Mainframe Studios at 900 Keogh Way in downtown Des Moines, this is 900 Views, a podcast about building community through the arts as we build an arts community. And we're involved in our series here to help us all better connect with the community building that is Des Moines Art Week. So Limited Space Art Week opening ceremony takes place Saturday, June 22nd at 6:30 p.m. to 1:30 a.m., I believe. No cover, one night only. This art show and dance party has 60-plus artists, 2 DJs, and one shared experience. Takes place at Curate, 322 East Court Avenue. And one of those DJs is the organizer, Sören Albaugh, also known as DJ Rock Paper Scissors, and you can find him on Instagram with that heading. And he is a Roosevelt grad, a public administration major. He's done a lot of work in nonprofits. But he discovered DJing by way of his love of dancing. And he was having trouble finding enough of the dance parties that he wanted in Des Moines, so he had to kind of start this all himself. So he and, is it Lindrum? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Lindrum is my DJ partner, and he, he's been a huge help. He has a strong emphasis on quality. So we have a lot in common, and it's been great working with him. And everybody in the Limited Space community, owes him a huge debt of gratitude.
So you guys started out as a small apartment party in October 2018. You had a dozen artists. Less than a year later, your latest event had showcased 40-plus artists and was attended by more than 1,000 people. So obviously, he's sitting here smiling at me as I say that. So obviously something was going pretty well there. What is the magic that you were putting into this mix?
Well, I think there's a couple magical ingredients. Community is probably the first thing that comes to mind. The Limited Space artists and the art fans that come out to these things are, a fantastic group of people. So I can't say enough about how strong that community is and how wonderful and rewarding it's been to work with them. So that's definitely a key ingredient. There are some very talented artists that are coming to these events. Every time we've done this, I've really been taken back at, how much talent there is. There's some fantastic art, and I go to a lot of art shows, both in Des Moines, different places in the Midwest, and then when I travel, I go to art museums. So I can say with absolute certainty that we have some very talented artists at these events. So it's absolutely worth seeing. Another thing that I think is a big part of our success is it's a little bit of an inverse of a normal art opening, in that with most art openings, you may have 1 or 2 artists showing, mini pieces, a large collection. With this event, we have many artists, and each individual artist is, bringing a much smaller collection, sometimes just 1 or 2 pieces to show. So in that sense, it's a little bit, flipped from the normal art opening. Also, it's half dance party. So, we've got a lot of different things going on in there, so we can appeal to a lot of different tastes. We've got so many different genres of art that, pretty much anyone who goes to these events is going to find something that resonates with them. Usually, a dozen things that resonate with them, if not more. So we're for those reasons, we're able to appeal to a lot of different tastes. Also, it's incredibly fun. I mean, it's a really
like
good
a
time.
Blast.
So I think that's a big part of it too.
I've signed up as interested, and I'm hoping to actually go.
Yeah, we got to get you to click the going button.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the going button. I love what you said, though. Often it's the limitations we face in life that end up being the genesis for our most creative moments. So that was part of the rationalization for giving each one of these artists 25 square feet. And maybe... rationalization is not the right word, but you know what I mean. You guys set this up with the idea in mind that this was going to maybe get some creative juices flowing.
Exactly. So that's always something that's been an interesting process to me, the creative problem solving, where you have a set of limitations or set of restrictions, and you have to come up with an out-of-the-box solution. So to me, that's something that's very exciting. And I noticed in my own life, often when I had the most limitations, that's when I found myself being the most creative and came up with my best solutions. So I wanted to kind of bring that process to limited space and prompt artists to think about other ways of showing their art. And we thought, well, let's just give them a set of dimensions that they have to work with. So you have this much space, and then not a whole lot of criteria outside of that. So we give you how much space you have, and you just have to stay in those boundaries. But what you do with that space is up to you. So it prompts them to think other ways of showing their art.
And when you're doing this, I think based on some of our earlier conversation, I get a sense that the community building that you're working on is really a little bit of a problem-solving type of community building.
I think so, absolutely. So one thing that has been really exciting for me to watch is to see other artists build connections with each other. Many of the artists knew each other at this event, but not all of them did. And as the event grows and we add more and more artists, I think we're seeing more and more new faces connecting with other artists. So it's been very rewarding to see artists get to know each other and build that community. Also, it's been rewarding to help artists reach a larger audience, because all of these artists have done a great job of building their own communities, and they already have their own established audience. Mm-hmm. But just from going to art openings, I could see that there's a lot of opportunity for growth. So with each artist bringing their community to these events, those communities and that audience gets exposed to all the artists that are there, and then vice versa. So you're able to help artists connect with a lot of other art fans. Also, you're able to help them connect with people that aren't that closely tied into the art community, because we get a lot of people coming to these events that maybe have a casual interest in art, but aren't typically going to art openings, aren't really familiar with the local art scene. So it's been great to help artists connect with larger audiences.
To what extent, though, when you think about the community that is Des Moines, mm-hmm. And you look at not just from the arts perspective, but the community overall, mm-hmm. when you started thinking about things that we need to address or do differently to become the best that we know how to be, what is the role of the arts and artists in those challenges that we face? So what's a challenge, and what's the artist's role in it?
Well, there's a lot of challenges that we face today. I think that art can really have a hand in pretty much any challenge you can come up with. There's a lot of social problems out there, and I think every industry, including the arts industry, has a responsibility to do what they can with their resources to address those problems. But one challenge that comes out to mind is, I think Des Moines is, Des Moines is ambitious. Des Moines wants to be, more than it is right now. And it's good to have goals. And I think there's a lot of emphasis on startups and a lot of other interesting business things that are happening in Des Moines. But one thing I always like to remind people that it's really the arts that are the primary economic driver. I think primary is the right word, meaning first. So it's it's what gets things going. New businesses and new startups want to go to cities, where the talent goes, and talent is going to follow, the arts, because it's the arts that make a community rewarding. It's the arts that make a city exciting. It's really the arts that make, a city a destination where people want to move to and live. And I think the arts, has, huge potential to address that problem.
I want to go back to something I said at the beginning that came from your language and your words, mm-hmm. when you started to talk about 60-plus artists, 2 DJs, and one shared experience. I want to capture that phrase, one shared experience. What is the value of that for our community?
Well, I think that it's when we came up with that tagline, we were really drawing attention to the community building aspect of Limited Space. So there's a lot going on at Limited Space. It's become a very large event with a lot of different aspects. We have videographers now for the first time in this new event. There a lot of 2D art. We've always had that, but we've got 3D art now. There's a lot going on. But even though people will be drawn to one particular aspect or maybe a couple different aspects of Limited Space, it's really one shared experience, because everyone there is so excited to be there. They're there to support artists. they're there to build community, and they're there to have a great time. So, the reasons for being there are always the same, even though the taste will be different from person to person.
So I've got to ask you this from sort of an intergenerational aspect here. When I was growing up, and I hate to reveal this, but when I was growing up, a DJ actually spun a disc, and their merits were sort of determined by the public on whether or not their banter prior to the singer coming in was worth listening to, right? Yeah. And now it seems as though DJ is something completely different, has a much different meaning and a much different role in music and energy and experience making. Can you speak to that a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different types of DJs, and radio DJ, there'll still be vocal work involved with that, but club DJ or a DJ that's performing at an event, that's quite a bit different. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. So first and foremost is programming, which is just the process of picking out songs. So that one seems obvious, but we do put a lot of thought into that. So you might not notice that, but a lot of thought goes into that. And then also the process of beat matching and phrase matching and key matching, which are just those are the skills involved with overlapping two songs so that they can blend together. Because it wouldn't be too difficult to just stack one song on top of the next song and play with them at the same time. But if you just do that without doing it correctly, the songs will clash with each other. So there's a lot of technical skills and matching up two songs, and then there's also just with the events we're organizing it and hosting it ourselves. So there's a lot of behind the scenes things that go into that. But honestly, I really love every aspect of it. So while it is a lot of work, it doesn't really feel like work to me, just because it's been so rewarding.
What's involved in curating both the music, like you do that, at the same time bringing in the dancing and the visual art, and now, as you said, videography and these other different elements? How do you kind of bring that together so that we do, in fact, get some level of one shared experience?
Well, you want to play music that's accessible. So what that means to me is that something that is not going to alienate your audience, but limited space is about among other things, is about exposing the audience to new things, new art, and then also new music. So we're not playing a whole lot of commercial music, but we're making sure that it's still accessible, something that will appeal to a large group of people, and that everyone there is going to have a positive experience with. And then also we have to think about so the DJing and dancing is something that, of course, we're very excited about, but it's just one portion of Lemon Space. There's also the art. So you want to think about music that, matches the art component. Now, there's not really a specific genre of art with Limited Space. Like we talked about earlier, we're just giving artists a set of dimensions to work with, and then we let them do pretty much whatever they want with that space. So there's not really one genre of art there, but you want to think about, okay, what's the type of music that's going to go well, for an art event. Think about the type of people that are going to come to this event. What's something that they're going to enjoy, and then also think about, what's something that we can show them that they maybe have never heard before. So that way, we're giving them a great experience. I mean, one of the most rewarding things about DJing is getting a chance to expose people to new music, new types of music. So that's something you have to think about. You have to think about the overall flow of the night, the energy levels. Things will be a little bit more subdued, in the beginning, and there's when
people my age show up.
I mean, it just there's a natural flow to the event. So you have to be very cognizant of that, and you can't necessarily plan that all out because it's a give and take with the audience. So you're leading the audience, but the audience is also leading you. So you have to be mindful of their mood and their energy level, and among other things. But those are some things that come to mind.
What makes a person like you, when you found out you weren't getting the dance parties you wanted in Des Moines, as opposed to going to some other place? What was it that drove you to try and bring what you wanted to Des Moines?
Well, I think it started off as a bit of a selfish motivation, just because I wanted to have the experiences, conveniently here in Des Moines, that I wanted to be at. And at a certain point, rather than just waiting for someone to create the experience that you're looking for, you just really have to do it yourself. And when I first started out DJing, I was working with existing events, existing venues for the most part, and I'm still absolutely open to that. But it's been very rewarding getting a chance to organize my own events, because then it's, instead of just half of your idea, it's really the full version. So you can bring the full version of your concept into reality.
And what was missing?
A lot of different things. I mean, when you're working with other folks, they have a lot of different priorities, and some of them may be the same as yours. Some of them may be different priorities. And when you're directing the creative flow of the event, you get to focus on what your goals are. So my goals have always been the music that I'm passionate about. I want to have an exciting dancing experience. I love dancing. I want to create a dancing event that I would personally be very happy to be at. Yeah, so it started out as kind of a selfish thing, but also, I really enjoy it too. It's extremely rewarding, and I've been able to do a lot of positive things, with this new talent I've acquired.
That's fantastic. So now, how intergenerational and multicultural are these experiences for people?
I would say they're very intercultural, and I would say they're very intergenerational too, in terms of at least the audience that's coming. I would say if we're just looking at our artists, they do tend to skew a little bit younger by and large part, but that's not universally true. And that's just that wasn't really by design. It's just kind of how it's worked out so far. But as the event grows, we're always trying to recruit new artists, which has been an interesting experience going through the call for artist process. We still have a few spaces open for the next limited space, which we're very excited to fill up as soon as possible. But I would say it's very intercultural, very intergenerational. And, like we talked about earlier, you can't really predict, what people are going to be drawn to, but there's so many things at limited space that I think everyone's going to find at least a few things that, they really connect with, if not everything.
Well, again, I hope I move from interested to going. I intend to. That's my goal. Very excited to have gotten to speak with you, DJ Rock, Paper, Scissors. As we close, are there any websites or other things related to Instagram or Facebook that you want people to be aware of, how to reach you or your friends?
Yes. So the thing I'm most excited about right now is limited space. So you can connect with both me and Lindrum through our event page. So if you just go into Facebook and search for our limited space Art Week opening ceremony, which we didn't get a chance too much to talk about Art Week, but this version of limited space, or this edition of limited space, is going to be the opening ceremony for Art Week. And Art Week has been so helpful. They've been so great to work with. So we're very excited to highlight the good work that they're doing. And you can connect with them too, also through the Facebook page. So that's a good landing point. We also do have a website that you can find on Google. The website is more geared towards artists, as more of a recruitment tool for artists. So for guests, probably Facebook is the best place to start.
I want to do a few things as we close this podcast. Always like to remind you of the value of Mainframe Studios to our community. And thank the incomparable Alex Cooney for his tireless efforts in making this program happen as essentially producer, editor, and more. And I'd like to thank Rachel of Art Beacon fame for her work connecting us to Art Week, including this contact with Sören Albaugh. She also put me in touch with Simpson Professor Emeritus Steve Rose. As part of the Art Week, he's one of the organizers of a series of poetry readings at Zanzibar's Coffee Adventure. You can find out some details at Art Week DSM. But to put you in the mood and in anticipation of some future poetic interviews, here's a poem by Steve Rose. Upcoming podcasts will feature other poets slated to read. I hope I can do this some justice. The poem is called Talking to Ghosts, and again, by Steve Rose. Ellen and I talked to our ghosts, her first spouse, is slow in paying insurance for their daughter. My ex, tardy with her share of our son's tuition. Such is the discourse of divorce. These are delicate conversations. They sound like the feet of strangers forced to waltz together at a wedding, concerned more with avoiding the other's toes or chests than with the dance itself. Ellen and I are told in our separate ways that matters are being taken care of. Her ex in the laconic rhythms of a man calming horses, mine with flurries that splash in the headset. Later, we who wed in the adolescence of our middle age huddle in the midst of a TV sitcom spinoff, Its Idiot Stepchild. We tell each other tales of our exes, witty and kind and catty, like citizens of a small nation, long occupied, now free. We then sit together, eyes burnt to the screen, quietly scratching the phantom limbs of our first marriages. Steve Rose will be reading, and probably much better than that, Saturday, June 22nd, with Kyle McCord at 5:30 p.m., again at Zanzibar's Coffee Adventure. And we'll have more poems coming up again in anticipation of Art Week. I'm Pat Bodie. Thank you so much for joining us for 900 Views.